This is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Donald Trump, Mark Carney, go at it, but not in the way that you think. I'm going to react to the first introduction between the Canadian leader, Prime Minister, newly elected Mark Carney, and Donald Trump. Watch this. Yeah, this is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So let's just go to when he comes in. I have no idea what they're saying. So that's like the fight thing. And you see that they're mimicking each other. So it's almost like he's playing along with it. Take a fan of to break them out. So I watched up to this point around 1 minute in. So it's so funny what they say. My reaction is not as pure, but it's hilarious.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great honor to have Prime Minister Mark Carney with us. As you know, just a few days ago, he won a very big election in Canada. And I think I was probably the greatest thing that happened to him, but I can't date a vote.
And it's crude. And the reason why Trump is saying this is because Carney literally was losing really badly up until Trump comes in and says that he's going to buy US, he's going to annex Canada, he's going to take over Canada. And the conservatives, or the conservative leader at the time, Pierre Poilievre, is more similar to Trump in how he talks, and he reminds everybody of Trump. So liberals in general are also more adverse to the US for whatever reason, due to like how the country is split right now. So by him saying that, it helped Mark Carney win. And it's hilarious how he makes fun of him and how he says that it was a bigger comeback than even him.
His party was losing by a lot, and he ended up winning. So I really want to congratulate him. It was probably one of the greatest comebacks in the history of politics, maybe even greater than mine. But I wanted to just congratulate you. That was a great election, actually. We were watching it with interest, and I think candidate chose a very talented person, a very good person, as we spoke before.
So they're really praising each other. And one thing is that Carney was the chair at the I believe Brookfield Asset Management, which is a series of real estate funds and private equity funds. So he is in the banking industry. He worked at Goldman when he was young, and he worked his way up in private banking and investment banking as well. And he managed the funds of he worked at the Bank of England and works at the Bank of Canada. So they seem to be. He seems to want him to win. And I think there was even a point where Trump wanted him to win over Pierre Poilievre. And so there seems to be some sort of unknown interest that Trump has in him winning.
For the election, quite a few times. And it's an honor to have you at the White House and the Oval Office. And you see the new and improved Oval Office as it becomes more and more beautiful.
It's an honor to have you in the Oval Office. So, I mean, he's really praising him a lot. And the fact that he's talking about the new gold in the Oval Office, it's kind of like he's turning it into East Trump Tower. It's a little bit, it reminds me sort of a little bit about France back during the French Revolution when the palaces started getting too beautiful. And, so it's kind of, I'm not really too sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but.
With love, we handle it with great love, and 24-karat gold, that always helps too. But it's been a lot of fun going over some of the beautiful pictures that were stored in the vaults that were for many, many years, in some cases over 100 years. They were stored in vaults of the great presidents who are almost...
So here he goes on into like a little monologue, and then Carney's just quietly sitting here. And then he basically says how the Houthis, have kind of stopped the war on their side, and how he's complimented himself. So pretty much he goes into a monologue, and then he asks Carney if Carney has anything to say about that. Oops, just an ad.
Si tu avais placé 1 000 au bon endroit, tu pourrais être assis en ce moment sur des millions de dollars. Mais
weaponry that was threatening global shipping, and the job was to get that to stop. And if it's going to stop, then we can stop. I think that's very, very positive. They were knocking out a lot of ships going, as you know, sailing beautifully down the various seas. It wasn't just the canal; it was a lot of other places. And I will accept their word, and we are going to stop the bombing of the Houthis, effective immediately. And Marco, you'll let everybody know that, okay? Do you have something to say of individuals with advanced weaponry that would threaten global shipping? And the job was to get that to stop. And if it's going to stop, then we can stop. And so I think it's an important development. And we'll have maybe before we're going to, as you know, the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. We're going to UAE and Qatar. And that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then, we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets. And I won't tell you on what. but it's going to, and it's very positive. I tell you it was negative or positive. I can't keep data. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave. But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject, very important subject. So you'll all be here. Mark, would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'm on the edge of my seat, actually. Yes. But thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American
So he's really inflating his ego.
worker, securing your borders, ending the scourge of fentanyl and other opioids, and securing the world. And I've been elected with my colleagues here, with the help of my colleagues here. I'm going to spread the credit to transform Canada with a similar focus on the economy, securing our borders, again on fentanyl, much greater focus on defense and security, securing the Arctic and developing the Arctic.
And this is really interesting coming from somebody who's a liberal, because talking about defense, talking about all this, and he really seems to be mirroring what Trump is doing. And so he really is really sucking up to Trump really hard and playing to his ego.
The history of Canada and the U.S. is we're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together. And I look forward to addressing some of those issues that we have, but also finding those areas of mutual cooperation so we can grow.
That's great. Yes, thank you very much. It's a very nice statement.
I mean, compare this to the Zelensky interview, right? It's like night and day.
Yeah. No, it was actually very effective, and it's still very effective, but people have to follow it. So, that's been a problem. People haven't followed it, but it was a transitional step a little bit. And as you know, it terminates very shortly. It gets renegotiated very shortly. But I thought it was a very positive step from NAFTA. NAFTA was the worst trade deal in the history of our country, probably in the history of the world. And this was a transitional deal, and we'll see what happens. Will there be starting to possibly renegotiate that if it's even necessary? I don't know that it's necessary anymore, but it served a very good purpose. And the biggest purpose it served is we got rid of NAFTA. NAFTA was a very unfair deal.
So pretty much the reporter was asking her about the U.S. MCA agreements, which replaced NAFTA, and Trump, and because the idea is that Trump already negotiated a trade deal way back, and called USMCA, and the reporters are like, wait, you already negotiated a deal. Why are you saying that this deal is not good anymore? That's a deal that you authorized. And Trump is saying that the whole point of that deal was to get rid of NAFTA. It was a transitory deal. So really that's his excuse in saying, why are you not sticking with the previous deal that you agreed to?
For the United States, a very, very terrible deal. It should have never been made. It was made many years ago, but it should have never been made.
Canada and the United States. Would you like to see a reverse trade in Canada?
I would love that. Look, I have a lot of respect for this man, and I watched him come.
I have a lot of respect for this man. So you see, Trump is really inflating his ego, and it's really unknown to see why specifically he's inflating his ego, and he loves being with him that much.
Well, essentially, through the ranks, when he wasn't given much of a chance, and he ran a really great campaign. He did a really great debate. I think the debate was very helpful. I was going to raise my hand, and I don't know if that's good or bad. I shouldn't say that. That might hurt you.
Yeah, so he's saying the fact that he's supportive of Mark Carney, it will be bad for Mark Carney, because most people that support Mark Carney in Canada, don't support Donald Trump.
But no, he ran a really great election, I thought. And yeah, something could happen. Yeah.
There's a conversation with Canada. The talking session with Canada.
Concession?
Yes.
Friendship.
It's not a concession.
Oh, we're going to be friends with Canada. Regardless of anything, we're going to be friends with Canada. Canada is a very special place to me. I know so many people that live in Canada. My parents had relatives that lived in Canada, my mother in particular. And no, I love Canada. I have a lot of respect for the Canadians. Wayne Gretzky, how the great one.
So Wayne Gretzky was really controversial, and I'm interrupted a lot to keep the YouTube algorithm happy, but Wayne Gretzky was really controversial because some people were saying that, since he was Canadian, he kind of betrayed the Canadian people by supporting America more than Canada last minute, just because Trump likes him and the Republicans like him in the U.S. And so Gretzky is really detested up here in Canada right now, despite Trump liking him. So I'm not sure if that's the best person to quote.
You happen to have a very, very good hockey player right here on the Capitals, who I have a lot of. He is a big, tough cookie too. Just broke the record, and he's a great guy. And we had the team here, and I got to know a lot of the players. But now Canada is a very special place. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, this point is get your response to this. Mr. President, you have said that Canada should come first state.
Yeah. No. Well, I still believe that, but takes two to tango, right? But I do it.
So he's kind of backing off on his 51st state talk, and he's saying that the other one has to agree for that to happen. So this is really interesting. Since Carney won, Trump seems to be backing off on the 51st state talk.
I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, as a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that
He's laughing. This is a very funny meeting.
beautiful formation when it's together. I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said that's the way it was meant to be. But it's I do feel it's much better for Canada. But we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think
So look, he looks kind of serious now.
it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may,
So this is interesting because he looked stressed when he was trying to think and formulate a response. So really curious what he has to say.
as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now. Buckingham Palace, you visited as well. And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. We have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And
So Carney really smoothly slipped in the fact that it's not for sale.
my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part.
Say Canada is stepping up the military participation because Mark knew, they were low and now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
So you're saying that what are you taking it to tariffs again?
Well, we'll be talking about different things. Like, we want to protect our automobile business, and so does Mark. But we want to make the automobiles, and we want to, we have a tremendous abundance of energy, more than any country. We have, just in Alaska alone, Anwar's been reopened now. Anwar's probably the largest find anywhere in the world. They say it's larger than Saudi Arabia. I don't know, but it's a lot. But we have tremendous amounts of energy. Other countries don't. We're both lucky in that way. They have energy. We have energy. We have more than we can ever use and more than we could ever sell, actually. And you have the same.
So he's being very nice because Trump always says the same. One thing about Trump that is easy to track is that he doesn't change. Well, he changes what he says, but sometimes it's really predictable. So in the past, he said that we don't need Canada. Canada doesn't do anything that we need. But like a true politician, Trump is now framing it in a way that is amicable.
Same thing. So we're two countries that are very lucky. If you look at China, they don't have that. It's a big disadvantage. Other countries, most countries don't have it. Most countries don't have that. So Canada and us, we have a lot of advantages over other places.
But you consider what Mr. Carney just said, that Canada's not for sale. Does this make the discussion a little more difficult to start on?
No, not at all. No, not at all. No, time will tell. It's only time. But I say never. I've had many, many things that were not doable, and they ended up being doable, and only doable in a very friendly way. But if it's to everybody's benefit, Canada loves us, and we love Canada. That's, I think, the number one thing that's important. But we'll see. I mean, over time, we'll see what happens.
So his tone is really positive and juve.
They want to meet, and they're doing no business right now, and those ships are turning around in the Pacific Ocean. Big turn. Those are big ships. Those ships take about 10 miles to turn. And, we lost $1 trillion to China on trade because of an incompetent president that we had who proceeded, but grossly incompetent. You're finding it out more and more now. And by not trading, we're losing nothing. So we're saving $1 trillion. It's a lot. But they want to negotiate and they want to have a meeting, and we'll be meeting with them at the right time. I have not met with them. And of course, you would know if I'd met. I'd tell you they want to meet. But, we are right now. Look, they're suffering greatly. Their economy is suffering greatly because they're not doing trade.
And that's true. Like, there are a lot of Chinese factories that have shut down. This is a true statement, I believe. And the Chinese economy has been doing pretty, it had a lot of red days during Trump's announcements.
With the U.S. And they made most of their money off the U.S. Don't kid yourself. They don't make the money off other countries like this. And we had a trade imbalance. We had a deficit, or they had a surplus, another way of saying it, of more than $1 trillion. Think of it, more than $1 trillion. And because of 145%, that's the only reason, but because of they have now 145% there, there's no trading. You can't trade with 145%. We are, therefore, making, in a certain way, I guess, $1.1 trillion. In other words, we're not losing $1.1 trillion. A deficit.
Quick side note on the tariffs. Like, one thing that's a bit controversial with the tariffs, some of the reciprocal tariffs that Trump introduced was because of trade deficits, not because of tariffs that countries were issuing to America. So America, for example, would tariff a country and call it a reciprocal tariff, but they're giving countries tariffs because of trade deficits. So it's kind of like I attack somebody with a knife and then they shoot me with a bazooka. It's almost it's like an asymmetrical, it's like not a tit for tat way of doing it. And some of those trade deficits weren't always, I mean, it wasn't obviously viewed to what was malicious, because frankly, it was a free market where people and capital will move in the optimal places. So if there was money to be made in one situation, like people will just buy the cheapest and best thing that is most efficient to buy. And so sometimes that led to the trade deficits, not necessarily a country always purposely trying to, I guess, cheat the US, quote unquote. And then he then divided these tariffs by two, saying that, oh, to be fair, we're only going to do half, we're only going to come back with half of the tariff that you're charging us. But really, they weren't charging us tariffs, they were charging, it was just a reciprocal tariff against a trade deficit. It's like if you buy more from razors.com than we buy from you, we have, you have a trade deficit, we have a trade surplus. So it's the same thing. So it's almost, it's a bit odd in that way, but maybe it's just a marketing strategy. Who knows?
This is much better. When I started, I said we were losing billions of dollars a day on trade. That's rapidly turning around. We looked at numbers this morning. So we were losing, the United States during Biden was losing more than, I won't even give you numbers because they're so embarrassing, but billions of dollars a day on trade. Those numbers are rapidly turning between the tariffs. Don't forget, we're now getting 25% on cars, 25% on aluminum, 25% on steel, and maybe more importantly, massive numbers of companies are moving into the United States. Honda, we have the car companies are moving in at levels we've never seen before. The biggest investment ever made in the United States is being made right now.
I mean, that makes sense in a sense, because I mean, and just to clarify, tariff is a tax on, really, it's an incentive and a tax on the American people if they purchase things outside of US. So because, like, let's say a car costs $100,000, let's say half of the car was manufactured in China, the other half was manufactured in America. That means that half of the car will be charged a tariff of, let's say, 100% for this example. That means that the car would cost way more. So let's say it's a $100,000 car. Half of the car is worth $50,000. You multiply it. You should give a 100% tariff. That means it'd be $150,000 for half the car. That means that the total car will be worth $200,000. So that will be charged to the manufacturer, to the person selling the car. So that'll mean that American companies will get punished unless they manufacture in the U.S. So just to break that down.
Trillions of dollars. I would say we could be at $9 trillion. You could go back to other presidents. They haven't had $1 trillion for their entire term. Look at Biden. He had bad numbers. People leaving. They weren't coming in. They were leaving with Biden. And he didn't know the difference. The only thing he knew is people coming in. You know who they were? Illegal immigrants. Okay, from prisons, from mental institutions, from all sorts of places that weren't good, from gangs, from Venezuela. They were coming in and they were criminals and murderers, 11,888 people that murdered, and at least half of them murdered more than one person. This is what Biden led into our country. I'm bringing in big companies. We have Apple is investing $500 billion. We have Jensen, as you know, is going to be 500, the biggest chip maker, or chip thinker, I call him. He's really a thinker more than a maker. But we also have the maker, Mr. Wei. I get to know them all in the last. It was a cram course. But they're all moving into America because of the tariffs. And I don't think people have appreciated it. Some people do, some of the smart people do. So we have more money coming in. It's really an amazing thing. We have more money being invested in the United States now than at any time ever before in our history, and it's not even close. And I think the real number could be 9 or 10 trillion. We don't know everybody that's doing it. We have many. I just heard about a plant that's being built right now.
Yeah, and I mean, Trump has done a lot of things to incentivize investments in the U.S. There are opportunity zones. That's one, but it's more domestic. They also have this golden visa program which we talked about, and that's pretty much, them charging a fee, having a type of visa, gold card. It's kind of like a nod at the green card. It's people being charged a $5 million fee to have a quicker path to permanent residency within the United States. I believe it's like a better version of, I think, the EB-5 visa, where they invest $1 million to have a pathway to become a U.S. citizen. And so apparently, reportedly, they sold, I think, 500 units of that. So it made 5 million times times the 5,000, we're talking about billions made in a week, I believe in a day.
Very, very top of the line company. And they didn't come to the White House. They're just doing it because they're making it, because if they build here, there are no tariffs. And this is the big market. This is the market that sets us apart from it. This is the market where everyone wants to be. Now, if I didn't come here and do this, all of a sudden we wouldn't be the market where everyone wants to be. So we're able to do it in time. But we're going to have a great announcement. And I'm not necessarily saying it's on trade. Going to the beginning, we're going to have a great announcement over the next few days, an announcement that will be so incredible, so positive. And I'm not saying, I don't want you to think it's necessarily on trade. Just to finish, we also have a situation, because everyone says, when are you going to sign deals? We don't have to sign deals. We can sign 25 deals right now, Howard, if we wanted. We don't have to sign deals. They have to sign deals with us. They want a piece of our market. We don't want a piece of their market. We don't care about their market. They want a piece of our market. So we can just sit down, and I'll do this at some point over the next 2 weeks, and I'll sit with Howard and Scott and with our great vice president, who has done a really good job. We have some good news to report on a lot of fronts.
One thing Carney is great at is keeping quiet when there doesn't need to be spoken. I mean, clearly he's a clear practitioner of the 48 laws of power. Essentially the idea is that, I mean, if there's no need to speak, I mean, pretty much, and I don't know if this is a law, I can't remember, but pretty much he's keeping quiet when there's no need to speak.
But JD will be there, and Marco, and we're going to sit down, and we're going to put very fair numbers down, and we're going to say, here's what this country, what we want, and congratulations, we have a deal. And they'll either say, great, and they'll start shopping, or they'll say, not good, we're not going to do it. I say, that's okay, you don't have to shop. Now, we may think, well, they have a right, that maybe we were a little bit wrong, so we'll adjust it. And then you people will say, oh, it's so chaotic. No, we're flexible. But we'll sit down, and we'll, at some point, in some cases, we'll sign some deals. It's much less important than what I'm talking about. For the most part, we're just going to put down a number and say, this is what you're going to pay to shop. And it's going to be a very fair number. It'll be a low number. We're not looking to hurt countries. We want to help countries. We want to be friendly with countries. But you keep writing about deals. When are we going to sign? When? It's very simple. Well, they say, in some cases, we want you to open up your country. In some cases, we want you to drop your tariffs. I mean, India, as an example, is one of the highest tariffs in the world. We're not going to put up with that. And they've agreed already to drop it. They'll drop it to nothing. They've already agreed. They would have never done that for anybody else but me. So we're going to put down some numbers, and we're going to say our country is open for business. And they're going to come in, and
It's getting blabbing a little bit.
they're going to pay for the privilege of being able to shop in the United States of America. It's very simple. It's very simple. So I wish they'd keep, stop asking, how many deals are you signing this week? Because one day we'll come and we'll give you 100 deals, and they don't have to sign. All they have to do
He's kind of blabbing against the reporters, telling that he's going to sign deals. See what else.
is give you a very good price. Well,
Where did you hear?
or we're not going to.
Does reach to the.
No, it's not a deal. They've said, please don't bump.
Can you tell us a bit more about the deal that you've got to reach to the Houthis?
No, it's not a deal. They've said, please don't bomb us anymore, and we're not going to attack your ships.
And where did you hear about this?
It doesn't matter where I hear it. The very good source I get that. Very, very good source. Would you say, Marco? I would say pretty good, right, JD? A very good source. But no, they don't want to be. They don't want to be bombed anymore. Thought that would happen.
USMCA, or is USMCA law wait for that pact?
For what pact?
USMCA.
No, it's fine. It's there. It's good. We use it for certain things. It's there. We have the USMCA is a good deal for everybody. I won't say this about Mark, but I didn't like his predecessor. I didn't like a person that worked. She was terrible, actually. She was a terrible person. And she really hurt that deal very badly because she tried to.
So this is interesting. So he really didn't like Trudeau, and he's making it very clear he didn't like Trudeau, and he didn't like I don't know if it was, I don't know who he's referring to. I don't know if it's a finance minister, but he's really against the previous predecessor of Mark. But he's really loving Mark.
Take advantage of the deal, and she didn't get away with it. You know what I'm talking about. But we had a bad relationship having to do with the fact that we disagreed with the way they viewed the deal, and we ended it. We ended that relationship pretty much. The USMC is great for all countries. It's good for all countries. We do have a negotiation coming up over the next year or so to adjust it or terminate it.
Yeah, because there is an opportunity in 2026 to renegotiate the entire USMCA deal. So that is a thing that is in fact happening. So the tariffs are kind of like, it was a strange move in a sense because it completely came out of, it has nothing to do, it completely affects the terms of the deal, yet he wants to renegotiate the deal next year. So it's really confusing and chaotic for a lot of people abroad.
Mr. President, I'll say a word on USMCA if I may, Mr. President. It is a basis for a broader negotiation. Some things about it are going to have to change. And part of the way you've conducted these tariffs has taken advantage of existing aspects of USMCA. So it's going to have to change. There's other elements that are come, and that's part of what we're going to discuss.
During the campaign, Prime Minister Carney talked about the American victory law. Underreacted that Canada decided not to shop at the American store as much as before it decided to partner with other countries.
Well, we don't do much business with Canada from our standpoint. They do a lot of business with us. We're at like 4%. And usually those things don't last very long. We have great things, great product, the kind of product we sell, nobody else can sell, including military. Look, we make the best military equipment in the world, and Canada buys our military equipment, which we appreciate. But we make the best military equipment in the world by far. The missiles, the submarines, everything we have is really top notch. I rebuilt our military during our last term. Stupidly, we gave some away to Afghanistan, which shouldn't have happened. But that was I think it was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. It was just very incompetent people. But if you look, the man that's now the head of our Joint Chiefs, he led the attack on ISIS for me. That's why he's the head of the Joint Chiefs. And Raising Cane, he was unbelievable. And as you know, we defeated ISIS in 3 weeks. It was supposed to take 5 years. We did it in 3 weeks. And he ran the campaign. They said, I like him. But I knew him before. I went to Iraq, and we agreed to a plan, and that was the plan. And as you know, we did it in record time. So we have the best equipment in the world. We have a lot of things. And but Canada, there's a lot more business with us than we do with Canada. Yes.
And as your investments, Mr. President, when do you think the investments that you've been asked to Australia will finally hit economic data this year?
When you're saying about the tariffs?
No, about the investments that you've been asked.
Oh, it's hitting right now. Look, they're already starting AI plans. These are not people that look for financing. That's a good thing. In real estate, you get a site, then you have to look for financing. You have to get your zoning. 5 years later, you start building. You get a bank, then the bank's no good. These people have massive amounts of cash. The chips.
Yeah, to the real estate developers, that is pretty true, and that's kind of what some of our clients are struggling with, and then that's why they come to us.
Act was a ridiculous thing because that doesn't get them to build. All we did is hand very wealthy companies money. The CHIPS Act that was done by Biden, billions. We give them billions of dollars. They don't even have to do anything with it. And then if you weren't, if you didn't have, and I don't want to be a wise guy, but if you didn't go with the DEI, if you didn't go with all of the different things woke, if you weren't woke, you couldn't even use the money. You had to have a certain percentage of this and that and that. And
that is true. That is true. There was an incentive to have a certain percentage of, like, to have some sort of mandates to invest in green and green this and green that. So that is true.
And it's impossible to have. The companies actually complained to me. They said they gave me all this money, but nobody can get these people to do anything. I mean, look, President Obama, and if you wanted help, I'd give him help because I'm a really good builder and I build on time, on budget. He's building his library in Chicago. It's a disaster. And he said something to the effect, I only want DEI, I only want woke. He wants woke people to build it. Well, he got woke people, and they have massive cost overruns. The job is stopped. I don't know. It's a disaster. And I don't like that happening because I think it's bad for the presidency that a thing like that should happen. He's got a library that's a disaster. And he wanted to be very politically correct, and he didn't use good, hard, tough, mean construction workers that I love, Marco. I love those construction workers. But he didn't want construction workers. He wanted people that never did it before. He's got a disaster in his hands. Millions of dollars, really many millions of dollars over budget. And I would love to help him with it. Or somebody else. I could recommend professionals. But it was not built in a professional manner.
It's really fascinating how during the White House Correspondents' Dinner back in over 10 years ago, how Obama was president and how Obama was making fun of how Trump would never be president, and how if Trump gets into the White House, he had it was a funny thing with a bunch of joke designs, LED signs, women everywhere, cars everywhere. And the funny thing is that now that was almost like the origin story to probably why Trump even wanted to be president this much to begin with.
By the way, nor was in California a little train going from San Francisco to Los Angeles that's being run by Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. Did you hear Gavin Newsom? He has got that train is the worst cost overrun I've ever seen. It's totally out of control. So then they said, all right, we will go into San Francisco. We'll stop 25 miles short. And we will go into Los Angeles. We'll stop 25 miles short. It's hundreds of billions of dollars for this stupid project that should have never been built. And then they realized that it would have been a lot less costly if we just gave limousine service back and forth and gave it free. They would have saved hundreds of billions of dollars. They have airplanes that go there for 1/100th the cost. And they have cars. They have a thing called a highway that goes back and forth. It's not fully utilized. And they got involved with this project. And Gavin, I always liked Gavin. I had a good relationship with him. I just got him a lot of water. I said to people to open up that water because he refused to do it. And we just got him a lot of water. If they would have had that water, and if it had they wouldn't have had the fires in Los Angeles. Those fires would have been put out very quickly. But if you think about it, and you got to take a look at this, it's the worst cost overrun I've ever seen. I've watched a lot of stupid people build a lot of stupid things, but that's the worst.
So Trump is just blabbing about how different deals went over budget, because if people want to raise money and they want to go and work on building the building behind me, for example, is a new development, then sometimes it goes over budget because things weren't planned properly. And so he's just complaining and making a joke about how certain people didn't do it properly.
What's happening between San Francisco and Los Angeles. And you want to ask about that because this government is not going to pay. I told our very great new Secretary of Transportation, he's doing a good job, Sean Duffy, I said, we're not going to pay for that thing. It's out of control. This is something that you don't have things like this. It's not even conceivable. 30 times over budget, 30 times. It's the craziest thing. And now it's hundreds of, it was supposed to be a simple train. And I think the media should take a look at it And I'd love him to run for president on the other side. You know, I'd love to see that. But I don't think he's going to be running because that one project alone, well, that and the fires and a lot of other things pretty much put him out of the race.
See, Mr. President, what changes would you like to see in the U.S.?
He seems a bit irritated. Carney seems a bit irritated. Here.
We're going to work on some subtle changes. Maybe, I don't even know if we're going to be dealing with USMCA. We're dealing more with concepts right now. Look, right now, we're doing trade. We have trade with they're paying a tariff on cars and steel and aluminum. And I think we have a baseline of 10% or something like that for the tariffs, but we're getting along very well. Right now, going no further, but we have an agreement. We did something with even ports. You want to discuss that, Howard, with respect to Canada, which helps Canada out?
Sure. So we've made an arrangement with car companies that 15% of their USMCA parts are included, and then 15% of foreign parts from the manufacturer's suggested retail price are not tariffed to help domestic manufacturing really thrive.
So again, you have a chance to be able to build their car parts factories if they're going to. A lot of these companies already have factories, and what they have to do is just fill them out. But they're able to build them in the United States, so we gave them a pretty substantial period.
Let me hear that
Not
again.
tariffed of their USMCA
For the tariffs, but we're getting along very well. Right now, going no further, but we have an agreement. We did something with even ports. You want to discuss that, Howard, with respect to Canada, which helps Canada out?
Sure. So we've made an arrangement with the car companies that 15% of their USMCA parts are included, and then 15% of foreign parts from the manufacturer's suggested retail price are not tariffed to help domestic manufacturing really thrive.
Okay, so basically there's a discount on, because of the USMCA deal, there's a discounted tariff on cars to help them out. It's pretty much it.
So it gave them a chance to be able to build their car parts factories if they're going to be allowed.
So it's an interesting negotiations, actually. Pretty much you charge somebody a fee that they didn't expect, and then you give a discount on the fee that you charged them and say that you're doing them a favor. It's pretty hilarious.
A lot of these companies already have factories, and what they have to do is just fill them out. But they're able to build them in the United States, so we gave them a pretty substantial period of time. I think
it's really clear that Trump's handlers are telling them that they have to rebuild the relation between Canada and the U.S. It's really clear.
Because is there anything the Prime Minister can say to you today to change your line on tariffing Canada?
tariffing cars.
Tariffing Canada. Is there anything he could say to you in the course of your meetings with him today that gets you to lift tariffs on Canada?
No.
Why not?
Just the way it is.
He wanted to say something, anything.
Stone White. You respect that.
Sure, I would. But this is not necessarily a one-day deal. This is over a period of time. They have to make that decision. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may. Well, respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state. Secondly, we are the largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us.
So he's really mirroring his language. Tremendous. Trump knows that word.
That made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world.
Same language, not like anywhere else in the world. So he's a lot of mirroring.
And to your question about is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved. And this will take some time and some discussions. And that's why we're here, to have those discussions. And that is represented by who's sitting around the table.
The conflict is, and this is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else. That was a much different.
He's talking about Vladimir Zelensky.
Friendly conversation, but we want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada, and we put tariffs on cars from Canada, and at a certain point, it won't make economic sense.
And just to clarify, Canada doesn't really, quote unquote, make quote unquote cars. They only have, like, I think 2 or 3 car companies that are 100% Canadian. I think what he's referring to is car parts that are manufactured in Canada for U.S. brands or foreign brands. That's what I think he means. Because because GM, Chevrolet, American, and then all the Audis, the German cars and all that, Volkswagen, German. But there's no huge car brand that is 100% Canadian. So I think he's not referring to like cars in quote unquote Canada. I think it means car parts that are manufactured in Canada.
It's for Canada.
Because like when people manufacture a car, it goes across the border like tons of times before it just stays like a part of a car will go back and forth over the border multiple times here
to build those cars. And we don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel and we're having massive steel plants being built right now as we speak. We really don't want Canadian steel and we don't want Canadian aluminum. And
another thing I would say is like the whole Trump, we don't need any other country thing. This anti-globalist movement hasn't really started with Trump. Biden did say that a lot of the things that were produced in China and Beijing and Hong Kong, etc., he wanted to produce in America. I think because Republicans are even more, could be sometimes more anti-globalist. I don't think globalism is necessarily I don't think anti-globalism or protectionism is necessarily quote unquote Republican traits. Maybe a little bit of nationalism, but we did back in the, I believe in the Reagan days, there was like a big, push for free trade and free global trade and no tariffs. So tariffs or no tariffs are not necessarily a Republican idea. There are tons of people on both parties that are for or against tariffs and for or against protectionism.
various other things because we want to be able to do it ourselves. And we, because of, past thinking of people, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. In other words, they have a surplus with us. And there's no reason for us to be subsidizing Canada. Canada's a place that will have to be able to take care of itself economically. I assume they can.
So he's saying it in such a nice way, because before he would say it in such a harsh way, but he's saying it in such a nicer way.
And I will tell you that Trudeau, when I spoke to him, I used to call him Governor Trudeau. I think that probably didn't help his election. But when I spoke to him, I said, so why are we taking your cars? Why are we taking we want to make them ourselves. I mean, I said, and if the price of your cars went up, or if we put a tariff on your cars of 25%, what would that mean to you? He said, that would mean the end of Canada. He actually said that to me. And I said, that's a strange answer, but I understand his answer. But no, I mean, it's hard to justify subsidizing Canada to the tune of maybe $200 billion a year. We protect Canada.
And so the $200 billion figure, I want to do more research on that. A lot of people on the left contest it. The people on the right will obviously agree with anything he says. So I want to really see where that figure comes from. But I think he's talking about the trade deficits. And he's calling the trade deficits a subsidy. I that's my guess, but I'm not too sure. And he's also, obviously, he's talking about national defense spending and such as well.
Militarily, and we always will.
So he looks a bit angry here. Carney looks a bit angry. He looks like he's just sucking in his anger and trying to be submissive and boost Trump's ego.
We're going to, that's not a money thing. But we always will. But, it's not fair. But why are we subsidizing Canada $200 billion a year or whatever the number might be? It's a very substantial number. And it's hard for the American taxpayer to say, gee whiz, we love doing that. Thank you very much. We're going to have a very
So that's about it. So all in all, that was it. And yeah, so you're going to see the outro right now.